I've played tons of games, and one thing I've learned by playing tons of these games is just how important the marketing of video games can be, from commercials to the box arts that we see on the shelf. For many of us, that first impression was a huge part of our choice in what games we would buy or what games our parents would buy for us. In a previous set of episodes, I mentioned that our Epic community member TripleStar100 suggested the top 10 best and worst Mega Drive box arts. But I wanted to do a little catch up with the Sega Master System. After all, I don't really get a chance to talk about it that often. But now we are, and I appreciate not only the kind comment, but the suggestion. I hope I do your request justice. Now, this is a huge jump, and also a huge example of just how awesome 16-bit era artwork was. This list was extremely difficult to narrow down to 10, and I do hope that you enjoy this. Before we get started, let's talk about this week's Dagger Challenge. For this week, we would like to know what your favorite video game is that starts with the letter G. Make a YouTube short or video talking all about your game, and make sure to tag me in the description using @Fortefyre. The winner will be selected this Friday at random and will receive a priority video of their choice. Good luck, have fun, and let's begin the episode. This is one of those games I was really excited to check out, but equally as nervous to do so because I hadn't really dipped my toes into dungeon crawlers, much less ones that were JRPG based. I'm glad I did though, because Shining in the Darkness hands down was one of the most fun Genesis games that I have ever played. I think the reason why I enjoyed it so much was because I felt involved on a level that was more than just go places and push buttons. I whipped out the graph paper and I created my own maps, and I felt it was beyond cool that I was seeing these labyrinths unfold before me. In some ways, it gave me a special appreciation for the folks who designed the levels I was walking through. Outside of that, everything about the game is perfect. The music, the artwork, the economy of equipment, the storyline, it's a perfect game. And the box that it came in was very much appealing to me. Both the PAL and Japanese variances of the box art do a wonderful job of telling us what we're going to be getting into. The PAL version is the same as the American release, excluding a slight border change, and the Japanese version is, it's cool. Look at this. Great job, Sega. Fuck me, Shinobi. I hate this game so much, and I know it's because I'm trash at it, but for the life of me, I have never liked this series. My first exposure to it was on the Game Gear. My dad actually owned both of them, Shinobi 1 and Shinobi 2, The Silent Fury. And now we have this game, Super Shinobi 2. Now you might be wondering, this isn't Shinobi 2, this is Shinobi 3. Let's play a little catch up. We all know the original Shinobi, played in the arcades, make it to the last level, get shit on. Then we had Shadow Dancer, pretty cool concept. Who doesn't want to use a dog to rip someone's throat out? I know I do. Then it got weird. In the US, the Genesis had the Revenge of Shinobi, and on the Mega Drive, this same game was known as the Super Shinobi. Then we had another Shadow Dancer game and a weird one called Cyber Shinobi on the Sega Master System. Then the divergence really became apparent. On the Game Gear, Shinobi in America started being numbered, as we mentioned before, Shinobi 1 and Shinobi 2 The Silent Fury, while in Japan, they were known as only GG Shinobi and GG Shinobi 2. Full circle, huh? So when it came time to create Shinobi 3, that wouldn't have made sense for the Japanese audience, so they named it the Super Shinobi 2. In America, you might recognize this box art, but I want to give attention to the Japanese box art. We see a Shinobi crouching down on a scaffolding with this epic planet behind him. To me, realistic artwork will always stand out. I'm an absolute sucker for it. I do want to give an honorable mention to Lethal Enforcers 2 Gunfighters. Have you ever played this? I recall the original Lethal Enforcers, and to be honest, I didn't like it. Because you couldn't make it to the next level unless you hit a certain accuracy threshold. And as a kid, if I went into the arcade with the intention to play a light gun game, the last thing I wanted to do was to be kink-shamed for my inability to hit a target correctly. I was still killing the enemies, but accuracy dictated your progress. Guess what was next to it? Time Crisis 2. So sayonara, Lethal Enforcers! But this was fixed with Lethal Enforcers 2. You'd still be called out, but you could still play the game. The box art is a Western theme, and to me it's better than the one in the arcades. Here it is for comparison. It's just a classic Western theme drawn to perfection. Oh man, this is a game I really want to play, but I have a long time to get to it. This is one of those games that are restricted due to my rules of release, which I won't budge on because it's counterintuitive to analyzing the evolution of a franchise. Sorcererian is the 5th game in the overall series known as Dragon Slayer. You might recognize that because the second game in the series is Xanadu. Many of you might know the home console release, known as Faxanadu. But there are tons of games that Nihon Falcom shit out for this. Dragon Slayer 2 Xanadu, Dragon Slayer Junior Romancia, Legacy of the Wizard, The Legend of Heroes, Lord Monarch. They all fall under the overall Dragon Slayer umbrella. Now this was only released in Japan for the Mega Drive, but the artwork is still extremely cool to me. We see our protagonist jumping towards a hellspawn, and I absolutely love the logo for this one. To me, it's simple, and simple is good, especially when the art is drawn with care. Do you like simulation games? Do you like tactics games? Then maybe you'll like Sangokushi Rasudin, Ransei no Eiyutachi. It's one of those 3 kingdom games where we need to take over all of China. You know, the one thing Koei pounded in the ground until oil spring? Yeah. One thing I've noticed in all these games is that the artwork on the box is very realistic. We see 3 people drawn excellently, and we also see a traditional Asian caricature in the bottom right. Now, I don't think I'll ever play this one because it's never received a translation, but if you like Romance of the 3 Kingdoms, then you're all set because all of these games are the same. Period. Give orders to your goons, allocate resources in your kingdom, be a good leader, be a shit leader, attack others, defend your homeland, all over the course of 3 different scenarios that you can choose from, be it 189, 200, or 215 CE. Now the cool thing is up to 3 players can enjoy this, but again, there's no translation, so sorry. This game was the second game I ever added to the Revenge list. There's a few reasons why as well. This game is insanely fun, but it's riddled with trial and error. The whole idea for this game is that we have an established objective, or a set of objectives, and it's up to us to choose which ones we take on in what order we want to. Then we get the mystery 5th objective that usually screws us over or is time sensitive, resulting in a mission failure and forcing us to do it all over again. It's basically an isometric choplifter, and for anyone who's curious, this series, at least the first 3, are the only isometric games I stand by in any capacity. So there you go, isometric lovers. Kalu Kalay! What a wonderful fucking day! The box art itself is very Electronic Arts in style. Make the artwork small, boast about your title, make money, and then eat other companies alive. That's the EA way. But from the artwork we do see, I love the scene that's unfolding. We see our helicopter, the missiles being fired at danger close, your comrade running to the ladder. This is solid. Many of you might feel this is basic, but I challenge you to think outside of the box. Historically, Sonic box arts, they looked cute. We would see him standing there holding up a finger that corresponded to the entry that it was. For example, Sonic 1 had him holding up 1 finger, 2 had 2, you get the idea. But when Sonic and Knuckles came out, they didn't do anything like that. Instead, they gave us a clean-ass box art. In America, this popped. We had Sonic, we had Knuckles, it was a black background with both of them looking at you dead in your eyes. To me, it had the same marketing appeal as Super Mario Bros. 3. And the Japanese version is just as great, but instead of a black background, we have a white background with the central elements being placed in such a way where it looks awesome. This is the standard of Sega, and to me, for what it's worth, it's one of the most recognizable Mega Drive games out there. You like beat-em-ups? What about fighting games? What if we combined them? That's what Mazin Saga Mutant Fighter is. And I know some of you might be saying, wait a damn minute, you greasy, loud, limp-legged, bug-eyed, crusty, no-talent, slack-jawed chicken nugget. Beat-em-ups are fighting games. Yeah, I get that, but the way that this game operates tends to challenge that notion. The main portions of the game consist of a beat 'em up, like you would see with Streets of Rage, the Turtles games, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the works. But when it comes time to fight a boss, it's a 1v1 like a tournament fighter, which I think is pretty cool. This game was released in the United States, but the box art looks pretty cartoony. Not in a bad way, just in a mech combat kind of way. Look at that codpiece, bro! Bedazzled for your pleasure. But the PAL and Japanese versions are so much better. The PAL version is a great starting point. We see our character with an edgy, almost comic-style artwork, and the Japanese version, while being almost the same as the PAL iteration, is darker and edgier. This is one of the few times I will ever praise Electronic Arts, so soak it in. It's not going to happen often. And if the game is decent, it would also be one of the few times I praise Beam Software as well. This is Blades of Vengeance, and it's a platformer with fantasy roots. We can choose from 3 different characters: the Huntress, the Warrior, and the Sorcerer. They each have their own strengths and weaknesses, as one would expect. You choose who you want, and you go through the kingdom to undo the bullshit that Minax the Dark Lady has evoked on the land. From what I've heard about this game, it's actually pretty solid. And to be honest, this is from an era where EA had a fairly diverse portfolio of games across the Genesis library. They had flight sims, the Strike series kicked ass, they had tons of sports games, and of course shooters, so it wasn't out of the question to have a few platformers. After all, the 16-bit generation was dominated by platformers. The box is what we care about though. The artwork is shared between the Genesis and the Mega Drive, and on the cover, we see the 3 protagonists that we can choose from. It reminds me a lot of some of the early D&D fantasy-styled artwork that we saw in the previous generation. And it kind of stood out to me, mostly because it looks like a jacked Kyle MacLachlan, a sexy warrior version of Lena Headey, and oh hey, it's Gandalf! It really comes together well. When it came to quality turn-based grand strategy, you couldn't go wrong with one company, Koei. They had them all: Genghis Khan, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and of course, Nobunagas Ambition. It was a constant battle to see which ones would make the cut for this list, and in the end, I chose Nobunaga's Ambition. For us folks in America, we only knew of Nobunaga's Ambition in 1994, but if you lived in Japan, you had access to not one, but 3 different games in the franchise: Nobunaga's Ambition, Nobunaga no Yabo, Busho Furoku, and Nobunaga no Yabo, Haoden. Now, I've never played them, and I don't know if there's any translations available, but art is a universal language, and as you can see in the box arts for this whole series, Koei never held back. The first one is whatever, but for the second and third Genesis entries, this is awesome. I will say this game isn't for everyone. Koei games are notoriously long, and you kind of have to be willing to sit down for a long time to beat them. But if you're only collecting for boxes, especially those from import games, this is a series that you should keep an eye out for. Well, the apple didn't fall too far from the tree. We're still talking about Koei, this time with a simulation concerning World War II, specifically the campaigns that were popular, at least the areas. The game itself is actually modeled off of Nobunaga's Ambition, and this is an example of Koei taking that idea and running with it. That's what they did. Now, this game was released in the United States as Operation Europe, Path to Victory 1938-45, but it was also released in Japan as Europa Sensen, or European Front. In the Japanese version, there is a campaign, a demonstration, and a 1 and 2 player game. However, in the campaign mode, we can only play as the Germans, and we go through real campaigns from their perspective. This was not present in the US release, but the code is still there. So if you want to have the campaign mode, just get a ROM and patch it. The box is simple, has some generals on it, and most of the units we'll see in the game, presented in a chaotic way, but not so chaotic that it's distraction. It just feels like it represents that era of World War II. Oh, you're gonna hate me! Or you're gonna love me. Because our final game, yet again, is a Koei game. This time known as Royal Blood in Japan, or Gymfire in the United States. And in stark comparison to the historical accuracy of the previous simulation games that they, pumped out, this one is 100% total fiction. Think of it as Koei's take on fantasy. The game revolves around the Isle of Ishmeria, and apparently there were 6 wizards who used their unique magic abilities to protect the island. This all changed when the Fire Nation showed up. Nah, just kidding. It was a dragon that was summoned by a dark wizard. This is obviously not kosher, so what do? We get told by a sea dragon named Pastha that we need to unalive that dragon, and they do, but because of their sacrifice, they were all turned into gems which were mounted into a crown known as the Gymfire. I don't want to spoil too much of the story, but the box art is pretty damn good. The US version was very much cropped in terms of the box. Most of it's a blue background. Wouldn't it be cool to see what the rest of that picture looked like? Well, if you own the Mega Drive version, you could. The rest of the picture is available on the box, and yeah, it looks eons better. I kind of wish that they would have just left it like this, you know? To me, it's the coolest looking Mega Drive box art. And that says a lot, because there were tons of epic ones on the Genesis. And that's it for today's episode. Which Mega Drive boxes stood out to you the most? Feel free to let us know down in the comments section below. Who knows, maybe you'll create a positive memory for someone else in the community. Speaking of our community, if you made it to the end of this episode, then you're already home with us. We're a gathering of video game enthusiasts that love remembering a time when life was just a little bit easier to live. And if you align with that, feel free to subscribe. Finally, the single most important thing you could do for me is to hit that thumbs up button, as it directly impacts the visibility of the videos and the projects that I work on every single day. As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes. Fortefyre out.